3, 2, 1. I think we're going live here on YouTube, and we're going to do some Suzuki music. So here we go. I've got a couple students in book 4, book 5-ish, and so I'm going to go through some of the pieces. You can practice along at home if you want to. So let's start at the beginning of book 5. So we have Valse Espagnole. So the thing that we're working on is those chords. So we have single string picking, and then we have these chords. Let's work on those chords. So what chord is that? So it seems like an A minor, but then we have this F sharp on the top, and that really gives us an interesting sound. It's like A minor but A Dorian, or you kind of think of that as it's sort of like a D7 chord suddenly there, but there's no D. Isn't it interesting that this piece is in E minor or E harmonic minor, and so you often have D sharp. There are, I don't think, any D naturals in this piece anywhere. Okay, so we're at the beginning and we're working on those chords. Here it comes. Let's just really listen to those chords. How do we want those to sound? We have a 2-note chord and we have a 3-note chord. And so what I'm doing there is I'm using index, middle, ring, and I'm stacking them up on the strings, and then I'm doing this. So just in the same way that a guitar pick is flexible. Oops. Oh, this one's not flexible at all. That one's a plastic one. Ah, here we go. Vinyl. Or nylon, I guess, is what this one is. So it won't break. Okay, so just like a pick is flexible, your fingers are also flexible. And so what we're going for is, instead of clawing the strings, we're going to let the fingertips flex like this. And when you play that, you can get a nice tone. Try not to use too much fingernail, but a lot of the fingertips. If you let your fingertips slide across the string, you can get a softer tone. And then if you engage your fingernails, you know, you can get more brightness. But what if we don't engage the fingernails at all? What if we just instead brush the strings with the tips of the fingers? Not so much fingernail though. I'm essentially just kind of sliding the tip of my finger across the string and not engaging the fingernail. So we have, here it comes. So right there, I didn't play like this. You know, it was subtle. It wasn't too loud, wasn't too soft, just the way I want it to sound. So you just have to ask yourself, how do you want that chord to sound? And then you can find the sound. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, and then we have the next section. Here it comes again. Same exact thing. In fact, it's the same fingering. It's index and middle, and then index, middle, ring. And so I'm playing it like this. And for a split second, my fingers kind of flex. And then I don't really dig in with the fingernails very much. And so you get this sound that's not super bright. There's not a twang in there, but it's still pretty loud. Okay, so that's what we're going for. Okay, and then we have, here's chords again. Okay, and we have chords with the thumb. But even though the thumb is playing, you can still use that same technique again. So, even though the thumb's playing, you just kind of pinch the strings this way. Okay, so then we have, you know, this part. Let's move on to this part. Okay, so what we want to do there is really play the high note as a melody. So we want to get just a nice sound out of that melody note. And so you can do a little vibrato there. It's okay to vibrato everything you're holding, so you can vibrato with the whole hand, just all the notes you're holding. But I wouldn't start the vibrato at the beginning of the phrase. Don't start the vibrato until you actually play the melody note. And so that's the note you want the vibrato on. Okay, now even though I'm using free stroke on all those notes, I'm trying to get the most buttery tone out of the high E string. So I'm doing that same stroke again where the finger kind of flexes like this before you play the note, but then I don't really follow through by digging in with the fingernail. Instead, I just let the string slide across the tip of my finger. So no fingernail really on that note at all. And it really matters where you play. So if you're too close to the frets or you're right on top of the sound hole, then it kind of, the string snaps when you play loud, so it's not going to sound good there. And if you're too close to the bridge, you know, then it's a little bit too nasally. So I would say at the edge of the sound hole is the best sound. And you can tell by putting your middle finger on the string and kind of pushing on the string. So how tight does the string feel? If you move over to the bridge, the string feels like it's getting tighter. And then if you move over above the sound hole, then the string is, you know, as loose as spaghetti. So you have to find a spot where the string tension feels right. And the only way that you feel the string tension is by stopping the song and grabbing the string and then pulling on the string. And you know, it makes a difference if you're holding a note versus an open string. So play the actual note from the piece and then feel the string tension and find different spots. You can almost tell how it's going to sound by how tight the string feels when you're about to pluck the string. So you have to find a spot that feels right. Okay, let's keep going. Let me give you some more things to work on. So we have this part that's like, well, how does it go? I don't have my music in front of me, but okay, so we have that part. So how do you want that to sound? Do you want all the notes to sound even, same volume all the time? Let's see how that sounds if I leave out the open B string and just play it alone. Okay, I have a challenge for you. Can you make every note sound exactly the same? Let's just try it. It's just a challenge. I'm not saying we're going to perform it like that on stage, but with your technique, the way that you play with your thumb, even though the notes change from one string to another and the notes go all the way from the 1st fret to the 7th fret, can you get the same tone on all the notes? I find that moving around on the string makes a difference. So for some notes, like the notes that are on the 7th fret, now the string is only this long on that note. And so if I play here, I'm kind of in the middle of the string. But if I move to the edge of the sound hole, it sounds better. It sounds more like the notes on the 1st and 2nd fret that I was playing over here. So I might move over. Okay, so you have to listen for that and see if you can get the same tone on every note. Okay, now you could use a rest stroke with your thumb. And I don't really like doing that as much with the B string that's going in there. So I'm not going to use a thumb rest stroke on that. But you could if you want to. Otherwise, everything's a free stroke. Okay, now let's try to shape that phrase in more of a expressive way. So I'm going to start soft, grow, and get louder when I get up to the 7th fret, and then as I go back down the scale, I'm going to follow that with a decrescendo with the dynamics. So missed a note, but that's okay. I never stop, even if I miss a note. Okay, so I went too far. I don't want to talk about that spot yet. Let's go back to this. So start softly and a little louder, and then we'll back away. So even as it gets quieter and quieter and quieter, it can also go slower and slower and slower. And as you go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, you can also play faster and faster and faster and faster. So start low and slow, a little bit faster and a little bit louder, a little bit faster and a little bit louder. Okay, not as loud and not as fast. And then do all that again. Okay, so a little bit of a crescendo there, but then it goes somewhere else, doesn't it? Okay, so how do we want to shape that? Do we want to play all those notes with the same volume? Maybe we want them all to be strong, but that part has to kind of build in a certain way. So it's going to go, it's going to kind of increase and speed up in intensity, and then it's going to back off at the very end. So louder, louder, let's see. Louder, 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 and then the last note. I'm going to make the audience wait for the last note. I'm going to sort of delay on that one. Even though I'm going faster, 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 delay, like that. So. Oops. Okay, now it's important on those notes to ring out in certain places and then not ring out in certain places. So you play the C's and you ring them together. You don't want to play them separately. Let's play them together, like it's a chord. Okay, and then you have to let both of those notes go, and then ring these two notes together. Those notes stop, either by muting with the left hand or right hand. Then you play the next pair of notes, they ring together. And then stop, dead silent, play the last note. So it's important to put that gap in there on the last note, right here. So there was no sound before the conclusion note of the phrase. Right here, there's no sound. Then play. So you don't want it ringing at that moment. You don't want that extra sound. It's much more dramatic if there's absolutely nothing before that note. So that note comes from silence. All right, so now we have, okay, so I would do this on that section. Listen to this. So that one sounds like it's sliding down a hill. So I'm just moving over to make it travel. This music goes somewhere. Okay, and then I'm ending on a tone that is similar to where I'm going to, which is the beginning again. So trying to remember how you play the first note of the piece. What was the tone at the very first note? Remember that tone. And then try to make that right here. So it's a return to I'm not only returning to the A section and returning to the notes that I played in the A section, but I'm returning to the tone of the first section. So remember the very first note of the song way back when, 15 minutes ago? I'm going to copy that sound and I'm going to return there to that mood, even on the last note of this B section. So think about that. That'll take you all week. That's a brain teaser right there. That's going to just, you got to practice that for a while, really intensely. Okay, but let's move on. Let's keep going. So now we're going to do La Volta. La Volta. It's in drop D, so you have to tune your low string down. Okay, just match it to the other D. So now you have two D strings. Usually I have to tune, and then you can sort of give the string a tug to make it settle into place, and then tune it one more time. Usually you have to go down just a pinch. Okay, so the bass part on this piece simply sounds like this. Okay, so I keep my fingers resting on the 3 treble strings, and then I bounce my thumb. Okay, so above the wood or at the edge of the sound hole is best. Now I play it where you kind of fade in, start over by the fretboard and move along. So maybe I can emerge from nowhere. So maybe I'll start too soft for the audience to even hear. Just like you're turning up the radio. So what if it starts inaudibly? So this piece maybe begins like this. Okay, so that beats, the generic beginning where you just start out of nowhere from nothing. So I like the fade in beginning. Now you could even start really boldly. You could begin like this. You could go. So you can do that as well. That's another legitimate way to start this tune. So you don't have to start right off the bat with the melody. Now another thing you could do is you could start with the harmonics. I might start with the whole range of harmonics. that's what I'm going to do at the end. So at the end of the piece, that's going to be my ending. And so maybe I'll take the end of the piece and put it at the beginning, so now the piece starts that way. Okay, so what you want to do on this piece is just play as aggressively as possible. You just want to dig your fingernails into the strings and just really get an aggressive tone, you know, like you're yelling on your guitar. And then on the, it's just everything's on 10 or 11. Maybe this one goes up to 11. So just play the strings until they snap and just really nail it. So I'm suggesting that you don't do subtle dynamics right now. I don't want you to work on your, whether this is going to go crescendo, decrescendo. Yeah, that's not really a piece like this. This is a Renaissance piece. There's no dynamics on the score. You have to make them up. So, but I believe that in this piece, it kind of sounds best just to kind of belt. And so, especially on this part, I'm going to change the tone and really try to sound like a harpsichord. And then back to, see, I don't want to soften up. I think we're losing it. I think we're losing the mood to kind of do a soft section in this piece. Okay, if it's in the Renaissance, it's going to have tiered dynamics anyways, and if you want to do any dynamics, the tiered dynamics would fit the period. So what tiered dynamics is you play one line at a certain dynamic and another line at another dynamic and another line at another dynamic. So it doesn't have the ebbs and flows like an ocean wave in the middle of the phrase or throughout the phrase. So, in other words, you wouldn't go louder, 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 like that. That would be an example of something that came a little bit later. So in the Renaissance, you might have done first line, this volume, then you might change the volume for this line. Then you change the volume for this line. So each line has its own dynamic. So in other words, the dynamics don't change during the phrase. Okay, so back to the beginning. So let's start over. So I'm going to start with this. And then I'm just going to play as loud as possible. Okay, so I want you to play that, and what I want you to do is I want you to start with just the melody only. So I want you to play just the melody all the way through the tune, okay? And I want you to, when it comes to the both notes at the same time, you have to use your book at some point to kind of walk yourself through how each event happens together, okay? So if you have book 5, song 2, set it in front of you, okay, first note, thumb plays 6, middle finger plays string 2. There's a hammer on. Then middle finger or index finger plays string 1, thumb plays string 5. You got to walk through it in this way to kind of define all the events, what's happening. That's a pinch. Next note. Thumb moves to string 4. Middle finger plucks string 1 together. Okay, so see how slow I'm going? I'm just like announcing each thing that happens. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and then what's next? So thumb on 6, index finger string 1, and so what we want to do is the thumb is constantly playing and bouncing around, but then you want to alternate with index middle, index middle, index middle, index middle. So you might have to look at your hand or look in a mirror to see if you're going index, 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 index. You don't want to repeat the same finger. Try to get used to alternating. You'll be able to play much faster if you get into that habit and work on it that way now. See, if you learn this song now with the alternate fingering, then as time goes on, days go on, weeks go on, months go on, years go on, you'll keep getting faster and faster. If you learn it from the beginning where you're just repeating the same finger, you're going to get to the point where you just plain can't learn it any faster. You've achieved your maximum potential. And so don't get stuck there. Learn the alternate fingering. So middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle. Okay, you almost kind of have to force yourself to do that. You have to just sit down and go, come on fingers, go. Middle, your turn. Index, middle, index. You almost have to announce it. You just have to will it, you know. Command those fingers to obey your mental commands and then just go really slow, right? So you tell your fingers where to go. You train your fingers. Middle, index, middle, index. What finger is this? See, there's a gap right there. There's a quarter note in the music, or there's a 2-beat. Is it a half note? I don't have my book in front of me. But double the length of the previous note. So that's where you could repeat the same finger if you're not being careful. Alright, so you have to use the alternate finger from the one you had just used. So really try to wrap your brain around that. Middle, index, middle, index. What's next? It's middle, index, middle, index, middle. Okay, so good thing there's all these hammer-ons, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to pick the strings that fast. In Renaissance and Baroque music, there can be just lines of 16th notes, you know, especially in Bach. So you'll want to put slurs in to make it a little bit more musical. Now, how would this piece sound if there weren't any slurs? So it'd be kind of like a typewriter, right? I don't even know if I could play it. I never even tried this. It doesn't have the flow of so it sounds a little bit too forced. So sounds much better with the slurs. Okay, anyways, so the alternate fingering is really the point. I think also something that's not in the book that I've seen in other editions of this piece. By the way, if you could find other editions of this piece and look at the fingering and see if there's any sections added or taken away, I think it's great to look at other editions of the same sheet music and see how some editors have adapted it. And if it's possible, it would be nice to see the original manuscript. I don't know, does it exist? Maybe we could find it. There are some interesting historical pieces, like if you're studying Bach, you can look at his actual manuscripts written in pen. It's fascinating to study those and compare them to your modern versions, and I don't know, look for mistakes or look for spots where people changed notes in octave or left notes out to accommodate fingerings and stuff like that. So, in other words, I found another edition of this piece that has another section, and what you do, I'm going to show you this. So, it's an alternate ending. Okay, so what it is, it's it goes like this. Instead of playing the high A on the 5th fret, what we're going to do is we're going to take it in a different direction. We're going to go up to the upper positions, because everything in this piece so far was 5th fret or below. So I'm going to achieve a different tone and play the ending with a different tone. Right here. I'm going to play everything above the 7th fret. Even do a slide on the 3rd string instead of a hammer. See how sweetly it sounds on the 3rd string compared to the 2nd string. So we've been smashing the strings throughout this whole piece, right? When we get to, we could play it either on the 2nd string or the 3rd string. And then of course, okay, end with the same way we started, remember? Let's keep going. Okay, we've been on that piece for a long time, so time to move on. Let's tune back up. Okay, we're going to play through book 4, and we're going to do it in reverse order. So we're going to start at the end and go backwards. So we're starting with the last song in book 4. Okay. La Folia and Variations. Okay, so play along. And I'm going to take it kind of slower than all the rest of the Suzuki recordings, because I think it's helpful to listen to those at full speed, and you want to really hear a professional play it as best as possible. And so those recordings are very well done, and they're at tempo. Okay, but there aren't enough recordings out there of slower versions or instructional or play-along videos where you just take the tempo at the student's pace. Okay, so I'm going to really slow it down here for you so that you can play along. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. a mistake, just keep going. I messed up. If you mess up, keep going. Variation D. Now, since that's the last note of the piece, I let it ring. I know it says on the sheet, 1 count, and then 2 beats of rest, right? 1, rest, rest. I'm going to play it like this. I'm going to hold that note for as long as I want, and then I'll cut. Because it is a solo. I'm on stage alone. This is a guitar solo. Now, if I had a conductor or if I had other members of the ensemble, we might talk about it and work out our own plan. But I'm going to take artistic license with the last note and hold it for as long as I please. Next piece, Bourrée by Leopold Mozart. Okay, again, I'm going to take it at about half tempo. So, 1, 3. You know what's interesting is this is in cut time. So I could count you in and I could say 1, 3. Because literally cut time is like, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1, 3, 1, 3. Cut time is 4, 4, chopped in half. Okay, so I'm going to literally count you in and say 1, 3. Here we go. 1, 3. Actually start again because I don't think that was slow enough. So you should practice your pieces at half tempo or even slower. I'm going way too fast. So now it's going to be like 1, 3, 1, 3. Okay, good. I'm going to stop because I'm out of tune. Okay, so you got the hang of how to do that slow. What you should do with Bourrée is do just the melody and then just the bass. Okay, so in the next section, for example, you could go. And then do just the bass. So. Okay, and then you put it together. So anyways, let's start with this major section. You know, I'm going to take it more closer to tempo this time. All right, so this time it's going to be 1, 3. Let's move on. Now we're going to play Lesson for Two Lutes. I'm going to play part 2 so that you can practice part 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Let's keep going. Okay. Waltz Allegro. So 1 and 2 and it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. Da bum bum bum. Or let's see, 3/8. So 1 and 2. It's going to be 1 and 2. Okay, here we go. 1 and 2. Next, Waltz by Messionier. So, it's going to be 1 and 2 and then 3 and. We have 2 16th notes, so 3 and 1 and 2 and. Next, Etude by Fernando Sor. I'm going to play rest stroke and then free stroke. So I'm going to really make a difference in the tone between the melody and all those open G's, okay? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it's in 6/8. There are 2 pickup notes, and so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we play on 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Song 2, Allegro, Moro Giuliani. It's in common time. It's in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Piece, which is the first piece, Carcassi Siciliana. Okay, it's in 6/8. There's 1 pickup note, so we get a 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Measure there. I messed up. I never stop. Keep going. Going no matter what. Messed up, you can redeem yourself at the end. Cool. Okay, that was what I wanted to do today. I played through all that Suzuki repertoire. Hope you found that super helpful. And looks like I'll be seeing you next